Hello friends. In this lecture series, we will discuss the process of nitrogen metabolism in plants. We know that the nitrogen is one of the macro elements which is required in higher concentration for normal growth and development of the living organisms. In this lecture series, we will discuss what is meant by nitrogen metabolism, what is biological nitrogen fixation, where we will discuss asymbiotic nitrogen fixation and symbiotic nitrogen fixation. We will see the mechanism of nitrogen fixation, nitrate reduction. We will also discuss how the ammonia is utilized for synthesis of various products. This process is called as ammonia assimilation. And finally, we will discuss the structure and applications of NEP gene. By definition, the nitrogen metabolism is the assimilation of nitrogen containing compounds. So it will include the synthesis of the nitrogen containing compounds as well as the breakdown of nitrogen containing compounds. Now the question is that why we need to supply these nitrogenous fertilizers to the crops for their better growth. So to understand this answer, we must understand the role of nitrogen. The nitrogen is a macro element. This is a major nutrient. Nitrogen is required for synthesis of nucleic acids. There are two types of nucleic acids, deoxyribose nucleic acid and ribose nucleic acid, RNA. Both these nucleic acids are polymers of nucleotides, and each nucleotide consists of sugar plus nitrogenous base plus phosphate. Now here, these nitrogenous bases are nothing else but adenine guanine, the purines, cytosine, thymine, and uracil, the pyrimidines. So nitrogen is essential for synthesis of these nitrogenous bases. Ultimately, in absence of nitrogen, these bases will not be synthesized and there will be the scarcity of nucleic acids. DNA is the genetic material and RNA is the protein synthesizing machinery. So if this process, that is synthesis of the nucleic acids, is hampered due to scarcity of nitrogen, then ultimately the growth of plants will be inhibited. The second function of nitrogen is synthesis of proteins. The proteins are made up of amino acids. So amino acids are the acidic compounds having amino group on one side, the acidic group on other side, hydrogen and the side chain. So each amino acid requires nitrogen for synthesis of this amino group. And all the amino acids, they are the building blocks for proteins. So the nitrogen is required in higher concentration. The growth of plants is controlled by the enzymatic reactions. And we know that all enzymes are proteins. So again, for synthesis of enzymes, the nitrogen is essential. Nitrogen is also a component of chlorophyll. This is the plastid, the pigment which is responsible for harvesting solar energy and conversion of it into a chemical energy. This process is photosynthesis. So in absence of chlorophyll and absence of nitrogen, the chlorophyll synthesis process will be hampered. The energy currency in living organisms, the adenosine triphosphate, also consists of the nitrogenous base adenosine. So here we can see that the most of the processes in the living organisms are dependent on the supply of nitrogen. That is why it is required to be supplied in higher concentration. Now the second part of this question is that why it is required to supply in repeated frequency. When we provide these nitrogen fertilizers, we provide them in the form of salt. The plants can absorb only water-soluble form of nitrogen. And we supply nitrogenous fertilizers in the form of water-soluble salts. When we irrigate the crops, these salts will dissolve in the water and they will be utilized by the plants. Or, due to misigation practices, these salts will be washed out. And after few weeks, these nitrogens will start to deplete in the soil. So again, we need to supply these nitrogenous fertilizers for the better growth of crops, specifically for perennial cash crops like as the banana and sugarcane. Now, what are the alternatives? How we can provide these nitrogenous fertilizers or nitrogenous supply, which will provide nitrogen continuously for long duration. In this chapter, we will understand this mechanism also. For better understanding of nitrogen metabolism, we must understand the biogeochemical cycle of nitrogen. The cycling movement of nitrogen between the geosphere and biosphere is called as a biogeochemical cycle. The geosphere includes lithosphere, so soil is one part, atmosphere, the air, and the water bodies, that is the hydrosphere. The living organisms include producers, plants, and animals, the consumers, as well as the decomposers. So nitrogen will be taken by the living organism biotic components from abiotic components, and again it will be given back. This cyclic movement is called as biogeochemical cycle. It includes 5 major processes. Nitrogen fixation. Nitrogen fixation is the process where the molecular nitrogen is converted into water-soluble nitrogen form. Water-soluble form of nitrogen. This process is called as biological nitrogen fixation. The second process is nitrate reduction. Next one is nitrification, where ammonia is converted to nitrate. Ammonification is conversion of organic nitrogen into ammonia, and the denitrification is the recycling process where the nitrates are converted into nitrogen gas, that is molecular nitrogen. I have produced one specific video on the biogeochemical cycle of nitrogen. I am providing the link in description below. If you have not gone through this video, I will recommend that please go through this video. Okay. The first process is nitrogen fixation. And we have seen that the nitrogen fixation is nothing but conversion of molecular nitrogen into a water-soluble nitrogen form. Now, water-soluble nitrogen form is either a reduced form, that is in the form of ammonia, or the oxidized form, that is nitrite or nitrate. We know that the plants, they are absorptive in their nutrition. They will absorb only those nutrients which are water soluble. So this molecular nitrogen, if it is converted into water soluble form, then and then only it will be available for the plants. The nitrogen fixation occurs by 2 major ways. The first method is called as abiotic nitrogen fixation, where the living organisms are not involved. There are 2 major processes in abiotic. The first process is electrochemical nitrogen fixation. Now, this is a natural process which occurs during a cloudy season, rainy season. The clouds, they produces high electric discharge, and due to this high energy, this molecular nitrogen reacts with the oxygen, it gets oxidized, and then it will be converted into either nitrite or in the form of nitrate. Now, as both these forms are water soluble, they will dissolve in the rainwater and it will come down to the lithosphere or hydrosphere. Now here, this nitrogen, oxidized nitrogen, will be available for the plants in the terrestrial ecosystem or in the aquatic ecosystem. The second method of abiotic nitrogen fixation is industrial nitrogen fixation, where the nitrogen, molecular nitrogen, is reduced. So it will be interacted with the hydrogen and will be converted into ammonia. But the nitrogen is an inert gas. So it will require high amount of energy, high temperature and high pressure for its reduction. This process is carried out at 200 plus degrees Celsius temperature and high pressure in the presence of catalyst. This process is called as Haber and Bosch reaction. Now this nitrogen is freely available. It is abundant in atmosphere. It accounts for about 78%. So it is free of cost. Then also the nitrogenous salts, they are costly. The nitrogenous fertilizers are costly. And this cost is only due to the fuel which is required for production of this high energy, that is this endothermic reaction is supplied with high energy, and this energy consumption is responsible for the costing of the fertilizers. So this is second method of abiotic nitrogen fixation, industrial nitrogen fixation. The abiotic nitrogen fixation accounts for about 10% of total nitrogen fixation on the earth. So it is comparatively of less significance. The second and the major type of nitrogen fixation is biotic nitrogen fixation or biological nitrogen fixation. This accounts for about 90% of total nitrogen fixation. So this is the major process of nitrogen fixation. There are certain microbes which can fix atmospheric nitrogen. These microbes are called as diazotrophs. They are diazotrophs. So diazotrophs are the bacteria which are able to fix atmospheric nitrogen. When these bacteria, they live independently, when they are free living, that type of nitrogen fixation is called as asymbiotic nitrogen fixation. Like as the cyanobacteria nostoc, they are free living nitrogen fixers. Whereas certain other diazotrophs, they shows association with a host plant. For example, the rhizobium shows association with root nodule plants, that is the leguminous plants. So they will have association with the legumes, and in association they will synthesize the nitrogen containing compound, that is they will carry out the nitrogen fixation process. Now such nitrogen fixation by the diazotrophs in association with other hosts is called as symbiotic nitrogen fixation. Now this biological nitrogen fixation is major mode of nitrogen fixation. In next video, we will discuss in detail the biological nitrogen fixation. If you found this video helpful, please like, share and subscribe this video. See you in the next lecture. Till then, bye bye. Thank you.